The Ruskin Art Club was originally founded in 1888 by Mary Boyce and a group of intellectual women that wanted a place to convene and discuss contemporary issues of art and history and politics and whatever it was that interested them, and obviously discuss some of the ideas and ideals of John Ruskin. In 1926, the house was purchased as part of the Ruskin Art Club, and it became a meeting place for all women until the 80s. And that's how it was started. And it's a venue of sorts for classroom discussions and lectures and readings and art shows and whatever it was that inspired this group. John Ruskin was an innovative thinker and writer of his time. He died in 1900, so you can imagine the influence of the times. But he wrote a lot about the effects of the Industrial Revolution and various things on art and architecture, history, social issues, and he has some marvelous essays on the painter Turner and other essays regarding how we see. He was also a poet, and in fact, our President Gabriel Meyer loves to take out a book this thick of John Ruskin's poems that he wrote before he was 21. So it's quite astonishing. I came on board with the Ruskin about 3.5 years ago, and Gabriel Meyer asked me to come on board and bring some programs of poetry readings or whatever it was that we wanted to do here. I'd been working with the Poetry Society of America for almost 13 years, and Kate Gale of Red Hem Press also approached me around the same time, and we decided, well, let's create a new venue where we can have readings, lectures, workshops, jazz concerts. They already were having jazz concerts before I came on board, and they were having classical concerts. They had some very important lectures on local Los Angeles issues of architecture and history, and so there was already, a sort of seeds of that love going on here, but we really put it together and made it an ongoing month-by-month program for the community. The poetry workshops that we do are marvelous, I think, because they provide a service that is different from what you would normally get at a university or an after-school program, or even some centers that offer writing workshops. It's an all-day workshop. The poet offers a subject, let's say if it's dramatic lyric and dramatic monologue, or myth and contemporary poetry, or ekphrastic writing, or something that, for example, Brendan Constantine and I will be doing one on surrealism. So you get a sort of small lecture taste of the subject. Molly Bendel did one on poets misbehaving, which was basically to do with different radical styles of poetry. And so you get an experience in that subject, and that's the morning session. It's a discussion and a lecture about the subject that's being offered, and then in the afternoon is when everyone gets to workshop their poems. We serve an elaborate lunch, continental breakfast. It's obviously a beautiful environment, and I find that our students are really pleased because they feel like they're getting so much in such a condensed amount of time, and so it's really like having a full course very quickly. We try to bring in an audience together. Mailings, emailings, we have different lists. What else do we do?
Well, when people ask either of us, because we've both spoken at AWP about how you bring audience and how you run reading series, and the answer is always, you do everything. It isn't as though this is the one thing that works. You absolutely do everything. So I think we each have a list of things we do to bring an audience. We each do everything we can, and it's always emerging. Los Angeles is a difficult place for all this because people don't like to drive. Or drive any more than we already have to, and so you have to work at it.
And it's not like New York City, yes, where you can just, walk or take a subway to the neighborhood, and it's all very condensed and intense and available. There is still that feeling that you know, oh gosh, what, I got to go downtown to see this lecture? I don't know, you know. But and that's not to say that Californians are more provincial. They're not. But it's just, it really, you know, something about the geography and the nature of how it works here. With cars, it's not easy. It's a constant battle, actually. We would like to think that we would always have a base audience, and we do have some base audience, but it changes. The audience changes, and sometimes we're shocked when we don't get an audience for someone that we think would bring in a huge audience, and then other times, you know, someone lesser known will bring in a large audience, and so the question marks are still there, but.
Well, that's part of the reason why we don't just go with who we care about specifically ourselves. You know, for my Geffen series, I've got Ann Carson coming in February, and I think, you know, 1,000 people in LA should want to hear Ann Carson, but there won't be 1,000 people trying to buy tickets, and it'll be very interesting because I'm so passionate about her work. And yet I don't know. So it's very interesting to me to see how even someone you or I are sometimes extremely passionate about, and then someone that I think, well, they're interesting, everybody shows up for, you know. So it's very it's hard to predict.
It's a separate thing. I mean, I think even the arts organizations need a PR person. It'd be great if we had like a company that just provided PR people for arts organizations. So we didn't, because we're all our own volunteers in this matter. So I don't believe in being innovative or exploratory just for the sake of it, but I'm very excited, truly excited and hungry when it comes to learning something more about language or finding something out. And a lot of that for me has to do with doing research. I love word origins. I love strange sort of word histories, things that kind of tie the world together, both past and present. But language, I realized over a period of time that my writing is very oral. It is very sound oriented, and which is both bad and good, because I can get carried away just with the sort of the sound of things. But it also has been a driving force in terms of my finding out all the sort of fun new relationships that words can have, and that images play off of each other. The reason that I'm a writer is because my parents were artists. I grew up with two parents who were actively in the art world, and my father was a drawing instructor, and he also taught Disney animators anatomy. My mother was a painter. We used to go to conceptual art shows all the time, and of course it was sort of slightly inappropriate for me to be there as a child, but it was wonderful for me on a personal sense, because I started to understand what I was seeing, what I was experiencing on an intuitive gut level, and that actually developed how I dealt with the world. Was that my process of thinking, my process of sort of distilling everything that was going on was done first intuitively, which I think writers do often anyway. It was instigated by imagery. And it was for me a process of translation. So like Kate Gale was saying about starting writing when she was a teenager, I started writing when I was a teenager, and I was about 14. And I wanted to translate these experiences, these art experiences, and make it my own somehow. Because I mean, I think that we're always translating ourselves when we write, and so for me, it's continually an ongoing process. And I often think I have to go back and remind myself of those days that when I would be walking in an art show, or looking at something that I didn't understand, or seeing a performance that was, you know, a little bit jolting, and ask myself, well, what was that about? And it was, I'm grateful for that, actually.